And I feel hurt and betrayed that Chidi's changed his mind about premarital sex. But despite how misguided Chidi is by his faith, I still love him. I can't help it.
Oh, the irony. The woman that believes in aliens, Illuminati, and the universe purposefully blinding Chidi for a reason now claims that his Christianity is misguided. Hilarious, isn't it? Can't she see the peculiarity of her own beliefs?
She says bizarre and weird things like, my blindness is for a purpose, which is outlandish and kind of insulting. It seems like she lives in alternate reality.
Yeah, something tells me that Renee's peculiar way of viewing the world might be starting to grate on Chidi. But before we get to that, let's rewind to the start. So the last we saw the pair, after the chicken incident, Chidi finally revealed his vow of celibacy. And it's safe to say Renee didn't take the news too well. But as we join them in this episode, as they're going on a walk where Renee is actually guiding Chidi, you can really feel the sense that he feels the need to try and make it up to her.
Do you think these fishes can survive without the water?
No.
That would be my life without you around me.
You can literally see Renee's face soften. Remember, this is a woman who says she's lived without love. And yes, she's been in relationships and she has 2 kids, but she's never felt this kind of love before, she's told us. So what she has with Chidi is really special for her, which is why Chidi's revelation of celibacy hurt her so much. She felt rejected that Chidi didn't want her on a physical level.
And I feel hurt and betrayed that Chidi's changed his mind about premarital sex. But despite how misguided Chidi is by his faith, I still love him. I can't help it.
She just can't resist, can she? She just had to have a little snipe at Chidi's faith. Like, the thing is, this doesn't come down to whether or not she believes in religion. This is about respect. She doesn't respect Chidi. She doesn't respect the beliefs he holds dearest to his heart. Like, she's still convinced that she can get him to see the truth, her truth. That she'll be able to get him to turn his back on religion in favour of her. So how exactly is she going to do that? Well, the first step on that quest is to try and clarify to Chidi how she feels. What I'm looking for is so much deeper than just sex, she tells him.
It just shocked me because all I wanted was to love and cuddle on each other and actual just love and connection, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't looking for just sex.
Yes, she says, your stance on sex upsets me, but don't get it twisted. I didn't fly halfway across the world just to get laid, she says. I want to get to know you on a deeper level, she says, and that means, for me, physical intimacy. It means hugging you, kissing you, touching you, and it means us, just us, spending one-on-one time together.
Of course I would have wanted more, but I respect your decisions. But I'll be waiting.
Wow.
Now, Renee's understanding actually leaves Chidi speechless. He really wasn't expecting this from her. Now, he does eventually go on to tell her that he appreciates how understanding she is. I get it, he says. I get why you were so shocked. After all, I was the one that changed my mind about sex.
I can remember vividly how we talked so much about sex in our various chats and phone calls.
That's a pretty big admission, isn't it? It's Chidi who's the one that moved the goalposts. Like, he's the one that took part in clearly sexual phone calls, video chats or whatever else, but then at some point along the way decided he didn't want to actually have sex. So that being the case, asks Renee, do you feel ashamed of how you acted?
That was who I was at that time, but we are all human beings and we are prone to change. But I love you.
Chidi tells Renee that he loves her and he's sexually attracted to her, but he wants to hold off sex until the right time, he says, which, to quote him in his own words, isn't far off.
Which I believe is not far off.
They may have only known each other in person for a few days, but that sure does sound like a very strong hint that he's almost ready to marry Renee. It's a lot, isn't it? It's very full on. And as I hear that, it does make me wonder whether this might be a reoccurrence of the whole sex talk. Is Chidi the kind of guy that just says things that he thinks Renee wants to hear, but then goes on to move the goalposts? Either way, wherever the truth lies, it's nice to see these two actually communicating their needs to one another.
I'm not a sex-crazed person. I didn't come all the way over here just for that. I came all the way over here to feel the love from Chidi specifically, so.
Renee may not be sex-crazed, but she is certainly love-crazed, and we'll get to that shortly. But when we join the pair the next day, they're off to visit the monkeys at a conservation park. And while Renee's meant to be guiding Chidi, she hasn't quite got used to her new role yet.
Sound of the birds and the waters floating, man, it's awesome. Oh.
Poor Chidi was brought back to earth with a bump. There he was, trying to give Renee an understanding of what life is like for him, what he can hear, only for his guide to not just not notice the tree branch, but not even realise that he'd bumped into it either. Now, thankfully, it doesn't ruin the moment. And when a monkey crosses their path, Renee, in a little too confident a manner, begins to stroke him. But this isn't one of your chickens, Renee. This is a wild monkey.
He's right here. Hey, bye-bye. Oh, he has tiny, tiny little eyes and a cute little mouth. He's a little fatty. Okay, I almost had a stroke.
Jeez! Renee's lucky that monkey didn't scratch her eyes out.
Okay, I almost had a stroke.
That would have been a wild twist, wouldn't it, if they both ended up blind? Now, on that topic of blindness, Renee turns the conversation over to how Chidi actually became blind. And I'm slightly surprised she doesn't already know this after years of talking. But Chidi recounts what he'd previously told us before. He tells her how he first became blind in one eye because an apple fell from a tree and hit him in the eye. And then, as a result of the loss of vision in that eye, he sometime later fell over and hit the other eye on the corner of a bench. Now, interestingly, he does also add that the loss of vision in the first eye is caused by glaucoma, but he believes it can be traced back to the apple hitting his face. Now, whatever the true medical diagnosis, ultimately, now he is almost completely blind in both eyes.
I was taken to the hospital and they just couldn't help. I couldn't see what they came.
Sorry.
Renee is upset as she hears this story, and she says to Chidi, if I could pay for surgery to help you regain your vision, I'd do it in a heartbeat. It's a sweet thing for her to say, particularly given that she's told us in the past one of the things that attracted her to Chidi is the fact that he's blind. But her sentiment does put a smile on Chidi's face, only not for long, because what she says next wipes that smile clean off.
Do you believe that you became blind spiritually?
What?
Like the whole thing is spiritually connected? Because if you could see, I wouldn't be here.
What's Renee suggesting here? Like, is she really trying to say that the universe, God, whatever it may be, made Chidi blind so that the two of them can be together? That's a wild thing to say, isn't it? Renee's admitted to us that she was excited to find out Chidi was blind because now she doesn't have to feel insecure. So her linking Chidi's blindness to somehow being fate that she found a man she didn't have to feel insecure with, is frankly a really inconsiderate thing for her to say. The world doesn't revolve around you, Renee.
When I met Chidi, after he told me he was blind, I felt kind of relieved, like, oh my God, I don't have to be so self-conscious anymore. It allowed me to feel closer to him than anybody I had ever been with.
What the fuck, Renee? Even if that is true. There are certain things that you keep to yourself because saying them out loud makes you look sick. Like, she really is a little bit crazy, this woman, isn't she? She truly honestly thinks that her and Chidi's souls were meant to find each other and that his blindness was a vessel to bring them together.
I think something spiritual happened to him that made him lose his sight so that we could come together. It's just adding up to like the perfect thing. You believe that I was brought here by God himself as a miracle.
It's as if there's no filter with this woman. She speaks without thinking. The notion, the idea that the universe disabled Chidi for life, took away his sight so that she can feel better about the way she looks, is such a horrific thing for her to think, much less for her to vocalise, that Chidi can't actually believe what he's hearing. It's made Chidi feel really uncomfortable all of a sudden.
She says bizarre and weird things like my blindness is for a purpose, which is outlandish and kind of insulting. It seems like she lives in alternate reality.
Yeah, Chidi thinks that Rayne lives in an alternate reality, and when she says stupid shit like this, it makes him very, very concerned for their future together, he admits. And truth be told, I think he's right to be worried with everything that this lady believes, and more importantly, with everything she believes he is misguided about. I'm struggling to see what these two actually have in common.